Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the final, incredibly exciting masterclass that we have as part of our Sustainable Fashion series. Today, we're going to be talking about traceability, ethical sourcing, and the rise of digital passports. I have the great pleasure to share stage with someone that I deeply admire. We have a beautiful story of how we met, actually, at a big fashion conference where both of us running around connected, I think, first on a values level, and then it turned out that on a practical level, we can even join forces, work together, and the rest is history. I am Luomila Yoronova. I'm the founder and CEO of Plan A, and today we'll be talking with Fernanda Hernandez from Temera about why traceability matters to all the big brands around the world. Why has legislation specifically focused so much on this topic? And how can companies that maybe are in the beginning of their journey learn from others, but also how this really allows for existing companies to connect better to their consumers? So I maybe will highlight a few of the moments of the history, I think, that have been incredibly inspiring to me when it comes to Fernanda. You have collaborated with Palais de Tokyo, the World Trade Organization, Oxfam. You have worked with conglomerates in the fashion industry and have always focused on finding this threat of sustainability across the operations of an organization to scale it to become the mindset of the organization. This is not something so easy. I've been working in this field for close to 10 years, and I'm incredibly excited to have you join me. And I think the audience will benefit to learn about the topics that you cover within Temera, but also of the historical choices that you've made that have made you such a sustainability pioneer. Welcome, Fernanda.
Thank you so much, Luo, for such an introduction, and thank you for having me in your masterclass.
I would love to start by maybe asking you to give a bit of a context of your journey. We'll cover all the details about traceability, ethical sourcing, and all that jazz, but how did you come into this topic? What excited you?
Well, my background, as you might know, but I'm sharing with the audience, is related on human rights. My background was really related on the perspective on human rights. I wanted to become a criminalist for a long time ago, and properly on gender equality, helping women, and so on. Then I did master in digital marketing and communication, the sustainable business management, but that is just a professional, the educational part. But the professional perspective, I started to work in the part of the human rights and on the diplomatic world, and I entered into the fashion business. And in all these paths, during seeing different also cultures and countries and so on during my career, I realized how the fashion industry was really lacking of a lot of things, lacking of transparency, lacking of human rights, of gender equality, the impact of environment. So even if it was a moment where I was like about to throw the towel, I realized that it was a moment when you need people to join forces, and we need more professionals to join forces to try to make a shift. So I passed through the part of United Nations, from the part of the B2C, to realize what the customer really needs, what the customer is looking for. Also, years ago, maybe sustainability was not even a word, and the people was really hesitating of believing in sustainability. Then it was really organically that the world, because of, unfortunately, we saw it with COVID and with everything what is happening with the environment, with the planet, with the social, it started to require the part of the sustainability. As you know, fashion industry is one of our really hitting industries on the social and environmental perspectives. And when I analyze all the part of the B2C, as you know, I created a manifesto and then gathering, brands from different categories for women, men, kids, beauty, and kids, which is like really a topic, because if you start to speak about each one of these categories, about, you know, cosmetics and everything, you start to learn about a lot about the things that are missing, and how to communicate, you know, the good efforts from to the clients and so on. And then afterwards, I when I had this conversation with Temera, for me was really interesting, because I realized how the amazing work they were doing. And now, as you know, to make a shift on sustainability, you cannot do it without technology. So now when I realize all the experience that they have and been acquiring, and the trust of mainly the main brands, all the brands of luxury, mainly luxury fashion industry, we're aligning to their traceability for 15 years with them. So it's not just something on the AGIC or the legislation or so on. So they have the reliability. They started about, you know, the counterfeiting, the to understand how the operations could not avoid the impact on the environment, because sometimes these also, it's like a benefit of the company, but also is a benefit for the planet. So it, for me, was really a really interesting shift to try to bring the B2C and B2B perspective to life.
You have a overwhelmingly rich experience when it comes to these topics. You mentioned the aspect of human rights. You mentioned the aspect of sustainability. For those of the people in the audience that are new to the topic, actually, it's very important to mention that in the fashion industry, these two are quite intertwined. There is a lot of KPIs that you can assess, and they speak about the two topics simultaneously. With all of this experience, can you mention to us what are the most important priorities for the luxury sector that you're seeing at the moment based on your work? You have been seeing this from luxury through to maybe small and mid-sized companies. What is key? Is traceability a big topic, or are there other priorities at this point?
I do believe that there are priorities that really interact one with each other. At everything departs, of course, with traceability. But I think that, for example, the transparency is one of the most important things. The circularity, the social equity, and regenerative fashion. Because when I was try to break down a little bit what I mean with this. When you start to speak about fashion, you realize all the impact on environmental and the social perspective. But how can you achieve that information, even as a customer perspective, if you don't have this information? So that's where transparency plays a pivotal role. But you cannot achieve transparency if you don't have traceability and data and technology. So it's essential. For me, that is an essential part. On the other perspective, you have circularity, because the fashion industry, one of the main problems is the overproduction, right? So that part on the overproduction, we know that we need to become circular. So of course, the reuse, the repair, the repurpose an item, and so on, to try to reuse what we already have. But now it's not just about also don't hitting the environment. And you know, Lubo, more than no one about this business on the environmental perspective, that is not just about not impact. It's about regenerative. That's why regenerative fashion is really important, because there is a whole world that fashion should really shift, because it could create more jobs, so on the social perspective, and at the same time it could actually be healing the planet using the right items and so on. And when we pass about the social, when I mention about the social equity, I do believe that also the part on the human rights, it departs on the supply chain. On the fashion industry, there are like crazy things happening on the human perspective in the whole supply chain and fast fashion and so on. But when you have transparency and supply chain, you can really achieve to help brands to understand what is happening and to try to react and to give also the demands on the customer on this perspective.
Yeah. Maybe moving a little bit deeper into one of the topics that you mentioned, you said that there's companies that you've been working for in Temera for 15 years. You're working with some of the households of the luxury industry, companies that are associated to the biggest shows. 15 years. If I think about the legislation, we're talking about the last few years. There's been maybe 6, 7 years of really detailed legislation, only 2 years of digital passport, legislative standards for the EU. What pushed all of these big companies to document, to trace their performance across all of these different KPIs? Was it a personal ambition of the management? Was it the consumer preference? What do you think has driven these pioneers to become so dedicated to these KPIs?
I do believe that sustainability became a super powerful bond that no one ever imagined between the brand and the customer. So now it's essential. So now definitely the customer is one really important, the demand if the brand doesn't achieve to their values. But at the same time, sustainability is now becoming really related and really linked with performance and profitable, because when you see risk management and you see all the hitting that could be on the legislations, you could avoid all those risks, but at the same time you could really link with your customer. And now the customer is more informed and more empowered every time more, because you see all the legislations that are coming and the accountability that the brands should really need to have. So in some perspective, they needed to do because of the legislation that is coming and so on. But on the other part, on the other perspective, there were a lot of really advantages, because with traceability, you could really track and avoid the impacts on environmental, on the operational perspective. Or you could really understand the counterfeiting. If you have also a way to track and to understand the item, you could really understand also the life cycle and so on. And then we're going to speak more about the digital product passport, but there are a lot of advantages that could really bring the brand a profitable perspective.
You mentioned a little bit earlier some of the negative impacts of industries like the fast fashion industry. We are quite openly kind of concerned about this, because we do know the impacts that it has on the environment. Also, it could be deceiving to the consumer. Since last year in the UK and in the EU, there's a lot of legislation on greenwashing. What is your today view on the topic of greenwashing? Do you feel like digitization is helping with avoiding greenwashing? Do you feel like some smart moves from behalf of these fast fashion companies have made it easier for clients to be deceived, or is it still something that is only for uninformed customers, so to say?
I do believe that there's this greenwashing. We're still in a jungle of a lot of claims, and that's why legislation came up. And sometimes these, all as customers, we found ourselves really in this jungle and of jargon, because there are a lot of sustainable claims and at the same time sustainable technicisms, sustainable words that we don't even understand what they're for. So now it's even when we want to empower, customers, or to know brands to be accountable, is that when we realize that we need data and we need just to speak about transparency in a really verifiable way. And that enters into place once again, at my point of view, technology and traceability, when you could really also as brand propose directly with your customer and show your traceability and your values perspective in a really verifiable way. And in these ways, you're protected, and you as customer, you could really know that data is informed, you're informed and empowered to know when it's a greenwashing or not.
I always find it fascinating when it comes to some of these big cases that came out related to greenwashing, where there was big brands in the fast fashion space that would literally be found to have cut bags to essentially destroy evidence. And I deeply hope that with the legislation, with technology, with digitization, there's a possibility for these cases to be avoided, because the environmental and economic damage is absolutely overwhelming. I wanted to dive into the topic connected to what I'm just saying, related to the digital passport. There is a lot of work of companies tracing the existence of a particular product material, but what is exactly digital product passport? Can you just explain it so that we maybe align all the audience participants on the definition?
Well, the digital product passport is properly like an identity where you have like kind of your digital twin, properly the same perspective of your item, the blazer that you're wearing, and then you see it. And this digital twin where you will have all the information of your item, you know, where the materials came from, what if there are like chemicals that are used in it, if these will be, how was the supply chain perspective, if it was protected, not protected, if your item could be repurposed, or you wanted to resell, or you wanted to repair it, or to reuse it, or to resell. So it's a properly, I do believe that is one of the most powerful links on a consumer empowerment. And I do believe that also we should really go and more. I do believe that the luxury brands should give like an example, because of course, when you buy something on a luxury brand, you're already thinking that they already have these values. They don't need to show me. So they should go forward. I do believe that it's not just to comply with the legislation, but properly to create this link with your embodied, with your customer, to show your values, to show your perspective, to create marketing things that might be really related on those perspectives, on the values of the brand.
I really love this, because at the end of the day, if we go back to the greenwashing topic, the only reason why there's allowance to even do greenwashing is because you can take a storyline related to a particular product, overwhelmingly fixate on it, overwhelmingly budget marketing money for it, without showing exactly the reality of the rest of what's going on. I think the traceability related to a digital passport really makes sure that each product within a portfolio of products is speaking its own language related to the performance that it has environmentally and economically, aligned to the same KPIs, which is really beneficial for consumers. And I think it allows for better predictability also on the financial performance of these big brands.
Totally.
I would love to get, just before maybe we dive into the perspective of Tamara from your colleague as well, I would love just to get your view on kind of this magic ball, seeing the future. You have been in this space for such a long time. You've been such a pioneer, incredibly inspiring figure that has given me a lot of different types of context to how the industry is suffering through all the digitization challenges, is maybe learning how to be better at defining what impact truly means. We've seen it all. And you and I have had a lot of personal discussions also on where these can improve and what needs to be done. Thank God we're seeing progress. I think we're more positive than we've been before. But how do you feel, especially after the last few years, what has changed in your day-to-day with regards to being a sustainability professional? Do you feel you're better equipped to do your job, or do you feel like all this legislation is making it a little bit more difficult for you and the clients that you work with?
I think that I'm like, there's like a lot when you see our colleagues, everyone related on sustainability. There's the one that they're like a really, like they feel like in a jungle of a lot of things that are happening. I do believe having this path towards sustainability, where sustainability was not really even a word, or the people didn't believe in it. I have a really positive perspective, because even with that, and even with the COVID and so on, you know, the historical moment and the situation and the planet and everything show us that the business way of fashion should really shift, we should shift definitely, and it could be really profitable, but in a positive way, creating new jobs, creating inclusion, creating gender equality. Legislation is coming at the same time. So I do believe that we're creating a momentum. What even a lot of course, fashion is having a really difficult moment, everyone. But at the same time, this could be a catalyzer to create, the shift and creating a performance, even to change for a positive way of linking with your client, to create new clients that are really like craving to find brands that they're really doing these amazing things. So if we are really smart enough to take advantage of this opportunity with both hands, using the right tools, technology, the right people, and the transparency to your clients, it could become like a totally different perspective on the fashion into a positive one.
I'm fully aligned with you, and I am incredibly excited that finally I'm seeing a lot more engagement on the idea of style rather than simply having a fashion as the discussion of the day that switches 6 months later. It's really about making people cherish the products that they have, understand that where they come from, the history behind them, creating this continuity of the use, extending life cycles. And I truly believe that many of the companies that you work with are a fantastic pioneer of this. And I think this is a fantastic moment to invite your colleague also, Guido, to share a little bit more.
Totally. I think that it will be something really interesting to have Guido on board, that will be sharing, this information. He has been in this path, like I have been doing on sustainability. He has been doing this path on the innovation and the technological perspective to try to shift and to help companies, to helping on this path on traceability and sustainability. So I leave you both. Now I leave Guido to introduce himself.
Amazing. Guido, thank you so much
much
for taking time. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to learn a little bit more about your work. May I ask you to introduce yourself? I would love to understand, like for the audiences, what has been your focus in Temera?
Yeah, in Temera, I am one of the the former shareholders of the company. So I lived the whole story of the company since the beginning. And now I am in charge of the marketing direction. And I'm working also with Fernanda on the sustainability topics for the company, driving both the strategy on the sustainable aspects of our company and about our solutions, and also on the marketing processes inside the company.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this introduction. Would love to be informed. Like, we would love to understand a little bit more, maybe with the presentation that you have about how you've been thinking about the digital passports topic. It's something that is very new for many companies. Of course, you work with all these big pioneers, but why have so many companies adopted your technology? And can you just give us context of how new companies also can start working with you? We know that through our engagements with a lot of luxury companies, your product is really desirable. It's a preferred option for kind of not only its reliability, not only for the sequence of clients that you have, but also for the fact that you've developed the technology even before there was all this legislation. But maybe you can give us a bit of context on that.
Yeah, so it's right that the environment is becoming always more and more complex, especially because when we started our company, the traceability was a big value for some companies, but for the majority was an additional service. I mean, that we delivered several projects, especially at the beginning, related to optimize the logistics. It means that we helped since the beginning all the company to let them know exactly the stock availability in the warehouse, in the stores, and also to optimize how to move the different items, garments, products between the different areas. But we started, especially during the 2018, with the first tanneries, to work on the transparency of the process. And at the time, there was no any any real interest yet about the DPP, about the real history of the product, except for some specific brands really interested in knowing, in telling their own supply chain and the value that was behind their own products. So we started with tanneries, and we started to acquire expertise and knowledge about, for example, the different tiers. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and how was set it up the supply chain behind their own providers. So we started to adopt knowledge and to bring this information to our customers, helping them to create values not just since the production, since the manufacturing sites, but also on the raw material aspects. And during the last years, with the adoption of the DPP, and it's correct what Fernanda said. So from digital twin, we moved to DPP. So the digital twin was during the metaverse hype, was the digital representation of the item, mainly for branding value, brand awareness, marketing perspective, creating a niche of a possible new product. So the way to sell physical and digital products. But right now, everything is moving on the DPP to provide with the digital asset all the story behind the physical production of the product itself. So right now, in this new environment, there's it's plenty of new companies that are focused on some of these specific aspects. And maybe what it's a value for our customers related to what Temera does, it's the end-to-end approach. So when we talk about DPP, what's DPP? So a lot of companies are talking about DPP, and what we want to bring as value to the company, it's not the experience, it's not the front end, it's not the way to tell the story, but it's the core information to tell the story. So we collect, following the different flows and processes all along the supply chain, and we collect this information to provide to the brand. So for us, this is the real value behind the DPP approach that the company has to adopt in the next years.
Fantastic. And you count amongst your customers companies like Bulgari, Cartier, others. Why is it important for such companies to have such technology? And I really appreciate and would love to get your view on this explanation of this is not about the marketing, because this has been, I believe, a misperception by many, that this digital passport products will be only there to show face, maybe some fake KPIs. It's not really about this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct. Our approach for different reasons is quite operational. I mean that, for example, we are discovering issues related to the supply chain. For example, one of the main topic is how to track all the information about the batch of the raw materials that reached the warehouse, and they are still there after, for example, 1 season or 2 seasons. So a lot of our customers in their own warehouse have a lot of batch of products, and now that they have to produce other products, new products and collections, if they go to take again that batches, they don't have the information related to the origin. the certificate of that specific product. So what we are trying to do is to collect the provider's information, but also to create a database with a specific serial number for each batch of products. I mean, leather, precious metal, cotton, all the products that are part of the final products that our brands are going to produce.
Okay, fantastic. And this is quite critical and specific to be done. Has this been actually possible a few years ago, or do you believe that the technology actually advanced? You have been in the space for such a long time. Fernanda was mentioning clients with 15 years of history of traceability with you. Is this something new, or is it something that has been there for a long time?
Yeah, I think that the digitization of the fashion companies has been a long path, and they started to digitize all the different flows, and these specific flows related to how to manage as best as possible all the providers and all the materials useful for the production. It's one of the last step, because maybe was already managed from one side, but not enough good. I mean, it's something that they have to digitize because they wanna manage in a stronger way this value to the final customer. Otherwise, they have to tell not a greenwashed story, but not the specific story for any specific product. So what they can tell now, and especially in 1 or 2 years, will be something really detailed. And for the moment, they were aware about the processes, about the quality of the different materials, but not so completely as now about the information of the of the origin and the provenance of any product.
Okay, really interesting. Do you think it will be a good moment to transition to the presentation so that we can see a few live examples of what you have been working on? There's a lot of questions from the audience that we can cover, and we can use the time maybe after also your presentation to dive into them. I also invite anyone from the audience to also add further questions. I'm really happy to see that we have people that are in charge of shopping malls, people that are in charge of massive fashion companies, sports apparel companies, people on the material side. So a lot of different perspectives that I think can benefit from your experience, Guido.
Okay, thanks. So I will try to be fast in
No, we have time, so you can go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to share with you this slide that represent quite well the Temera vision in a new circular model. So there's no more some specific circle for any specific process. So there's no a specific circle for sourcing, one for production, one for logistics and retail, and one for customer. But there's one whole circle that includes all these 4 circles, because especially thanks to the new legislation, there's no more possibilities to burn the products, and everything has to be bring again in the production process. So if we start by the sourcing, we track and we follow the breeding and farming, the raw material process, until the quality check, before that the raw materials or semi-finished product arrive at the headquarter. When the semi-finished product or raw material are arrived on the headquarter, the headquarter send this part of the final products to the different manufacturers. And when the product is finished, everything arrived to the warehouse, and everything is distributed to stores, e-commerce, and wholesalers. At the end of the process, the products arrive in the end of the final customer, and now starts the back process. So from the second end or from the client returns, the product can come back to the store. And there's also the end of season returns. So here starts the reverse logistics. And when the warehouse receive all these products, here become the sorting process. So all the products are disassembled in the different components, and the components could be sold in different new supply chains or reused in the supply chain of the brand itself. And in this case, the sourcing process starts again with the reused components. Okay, so for this reason, we are telling the story about a new circular model with this back and forth direction of the raw material. So here there's a small deep dive about the value chain of the product related to the serialization. And so here you can see how through the usage of QR code or barcode or RFID or NFC, that is a microchip technology, you can start to serialize both the batch of the raw materials, both the products created with that raw materials, until the finished product that will tell the story of the different steps done by any specific product, that will tell a serialized story of its own life. So switching directly to some DPP case studies, these are some projects that we did during the last 6 months. So this one is the MCM luggage product. We also had a partner on this project for the blockchain part. That was Aura, the blockchain consortium. That is one of our strategic partners. And in this case, with the NFC tag embedded in the luggage and the adoption of the blockchain, we told the story of any specific luggage produced for this limited edition. And any luggage was traceable and verifiable both through the private blockchain and both through the public blockchain. Here you have thoughts, and we did the first project on the D bag, the iconic bag of thoughts, and in this case the NFC, so the microchip embedded in the bag, told the story of the different processes related to the manufacturing of the bag itself, also including with the public NFT the 3D of the product with the customized stamp on the bag. With Bulgari, we started doing several digital twins. Like in this case, this was a capsule collection that Bulgari decided to produce with the 3 international artists that created 6 versions of the Bulgari most iconic bag, the Serpenti bag. And in this case, through the interaction with the bag, you could discover all the information about the creation of the product and about the idea that the artist wanted to represent, plus the NFT of the ownership of the specific bag. And we worked also on the jewelry and watches businesses of Bulgari until the arrival to the iJewelry, that is the first unit that adopted massively. It means on all the jewelry part of the iJewelry collection of the DPP. So we started creating the DPP of all the iJewelry jewels, and now we are expanding this project also to the cruise collection or standard jewels and watches and leather goods. So all the small and large leather goods, silk, and the accessories of Bulgari. One of the last project was also the Dior BT3 sneakers. And also in this case, this was a capsule collection, a specific collection with the NFT included. And also in this case, we followed the adoption of the NFC as enabler and the storage of the information of the product during the whole life cycle.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This is so exciting, and also I think an incredibly valuable selection of examples that are so diverse and I would say quite complex, probably to translate in KPIs and projects to define the traceability for. There's a lot of questions from the audience, and we have 15 minutes left, so maybe we'll try to go through all of them. They're to both you, Fernanda, and to you, Guido. There is a question that I would rephrase a little bit that has been upvoted the most, which is related to the manipulation of the information. I would translate it into what maybe is useful in the context of the DPP. Do you always track the same KPIs for every single product, or do you pick and choose according to the client's preference? And the question that the audience is asking, have you ever seen anyone try to manipulate the data? Let's start first with the KPI selection, and then we can go into the data itself.
I can answer, or
yeah, Guido, if it's okay with you.
Okay. So regarding the second question was about the transparency of the information, and for the moment you have to consider that we are integrated through a software with the different data sources, and we also add the data that we collect with our own softwares along the supply chain. So we have a solution for the raw material, we have a solution for manufacturing, etc. But sometimes we also collect data from external providers. Okay, so in this way, everything is quite transparent. I mean, I've never seen something related to manipulation of data, etc.
Yeah.
While the first question, sorry, was related to.
It's really related to the selection of the KPIs. So you responded to the second part of it. You always set the same KPIs, or are they different?
So regarding this, we are working with our lawyer, and we are defining the data set for any specific category. So in this way, we are creating a standard structure for any kind of product. So we are always using the same data setting for the different product categories. So this is our approach. We invested the last 6 months in creating these different data sets, but right now we can answer to the questions that all the brands have done to us in the previous month. So what are the data that we have to manage? Now we have the answer.
I see. Incredible. There's a question related to difficult to trace data. is there a particular type? You showed a lot of different batches of data that you look for. Are there any ones that are particularly difficult to trace?
Yeah, the biggest challenge was to onboard all the providers and receiving the batches of raw materials or semi-finished product already with an identified number collected in a software, in a solution already integrated with the supply chain systems. Once that the brands did this step, yeah, one of the biggest challenge was to manage the remaining part of the batches in the warehouses, because sometimes to create the same SKU, so the same product, they have to use different batches. And also the DPP for the moment is based on the SKU, not on the serial number. So we have to bring and pair the information of the batches with that specific gather of SKU created. So if we have, for example, 10 different batches of organic cotton to create the t-shirts, we have to pair the specific batch with their specific producers. So at the end, we are able to create the right DPP with the right information.
Amazing. This is really impressive, and I think it shows that you've gone through a sequence of improvement steps in order to get to the point of being able to where you are today. There's actually questions related to supply chain. So how might kind of these traceability activities integrate into traditional business models? Do you feel like you come in as a solution that is exciting for the innovation department and the sustainability department, or do you feel like the whole company lives this transformation?
So when we talked about digital twin, everything was really mainly related to the innovation team or to the marketing team, or yeah, it was something maybe far from the production and from the supply chain. But right now, especially thanks to legislations, European Commission, the AGEC law, etc., also the supply chain and the processes have to move, to shift to this new way to produce and to track and trace the phases. So they are adopting, and also the legislators are helping the company shifting the mandatory adoption of DPP to 2026, because they have to change the process in which they produce, in which they collect information, and also in which they are starting to bring in again the components, the recycled components in this circular flow. So right now, also the production is really involved in these activities, not only the innovation part of the company.
Which is good news, because at the end of the day, this is where you actually start the transformation to avoid any mistakes made in terms of the sourcing decisions, but also in terms of kind of maybe misalignment with legislation. There is a question on the social human rights side. Historically, and we've seen it also through our work with luxury brands, it's not always the easiest to find data. Some even like third layer suppliers, or even just directly first layer suppliers, don't even know where certain of the batch production is created. Have you been able to trace easily data associated to this?
Yeah, maybe, sorry, it's my fault, but I forgot to tell this part of the challenges. I mean, that of course we are mainly working with fashion luxury companies, and the supply chain was already more transparent respect to premium brands or mass market brands. Okay, so one of the biggest challenge also for premium brands is to reach by their own providers information about origin, certification, etc. And in that case, we are really a software company that is helping the brand to collect the information, because in that case the tier is really too long for us. While in other cases we can arrive also to tier 2, tier 3, related to farmers, related to who is really producing the raw materials. But also in this case, the legislation is helping the environment in being more transparent, but the companies need time to go so deep in their own sourcing processes. So we have mainly started from the tier 1, and later on we are starting to go also on the other tiers.
Fantastic. There is a question, maybe to both of you, related to language, and maybe I'll actually ask it in two parts so that Guido, you can speak about the projects, and then Fernanda, you can mention how you feel like the industry is shifting. Do you feel like there's common language finally about these topics, or do people still speak different languages? You need to educate them on the terminology. Where are we standing on this topic?
Well,
I leave this. Yeah, I leave
no,
this
go ahead.
It is more prepared to respect me. I want to just say one thing, that the new figure of the ESG manager, the sustainability manager, is somebody that is really helping this process in sharing the same wording and in creating value on this part of the process. Please, Fernanda, sorry.
I do believe that this is still evolving, like everything about the digital product passport, but the European Commission, it think about the standardization, so we could have something that might be understandable for everyone. And I will go back to one of the conversations that we have, Lugo, that is also really on the all the technicisms and the information that all the consumers we are finding sometimes really confusing. So now it's really important that the digital product passport will have these like easy way to understand and to break down the sustainability information of an item.
Incredible. Thank you so much for the context. And Fernando, there's another question that is specifically dedicated to you. There's a brand owner that is different size than the ones that maybe were mentioned, saying, when is going to be the time for smaller brands also to be part of these kinds of initiatives?
Yeah, I saw her question. Actually, I know her.
Stephanie,
well.
Nina.
It's Nina.
Yeah.
Yes, I know her very well, and it's amazing, her brand, by the way. I do believe that this is really, the DPP could be a link also to have an important link with their customer. So what it means that you could really have a conversation with the right audience, showing your values in a really important bonding with your customers, which maybe was more difficult for smaller brands, because maybe from all the lack and the inequality of budgets between like big brands and small brands. This could be a link with your final customer and enhance the conversation, and maybe enhance, of course, your business.
Amazing. And one question that maybe is a little bit provocative, but I think it will be a nice one to finish off with, is related to the cheap fast fashion t-shirts. Is there going to be a moment when these get to be tagged? Do you believe that there will be a moment when it becomes such a common place to have digital product passports that you actually can see this product on the shelves, yet it doesn't fulfill the standards maybe of the European Commission, but the data is there?
Data, I will leave this to Guido on the data perspective, and then I will let you know my vision.
Okay. So this part is so it's tricky. I mean, we use usually some schema related to the data, to different data that are, let me say, related to the specific category. And when we start with the different brands working on the different projects, we try to set up since the beginning this part. This is part of our consultancy team that it's usually done in the first step of the work with the company.
Okay.
If I could tell just
Fernanda, yes.
like something about the t-shirts, maybe I don't want to get like far away on the conversation and what Guido is mentioning, but I am really also on the topic that I envision, and I hope that also this DPP brings transparency also on all these t-shirts that we find really common on the fast fashion, with maybe claims that are totally illogical with the claims of what it is behind with the supply chains, like, I don't know, feminism and so on. And they're like cheap, like 2 5 years t-shirts, when you see what the most that it promotes is the lack of gender equality and human rights. So I do believe that this traceability would really also cover this information and will help the customer to have this empower for the right choices.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this inspirational, informative discussion. Really practical way for anyone, be it on the luxury fashion side or someone that is in the beginning of their journey as a mid-market level company, to understand how this kind of technology can be of a lot of support. I think many people think of these kinds of projects and initiatives and the implementation of them as something burdensome. I think you've been able to prove that it is possible, that the technology exists, that has been existing for a long time and has been perfected over a long time. So there's people that can be trusted, like Temera, like Plan A, who you can put your work in the hands of, so that your products can live. You can focus on building the relationship and the client, but with the data behind. Thank you so much for this inspiration. And we'll follow up, because there was quite a lot of additional questions that we didn't answer, maybe with some more kind of details as a result of this conversation. Thank you, Fernanda. Thank you, Guido.
Thank you, Lubomila, for having us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lubomila.